The man arrested multiple times near Taylor Swift's Manhattan home was arraigned on new charges today. And while this case involves a superstar, everyday New Yorkers face their own stalkers and abusers regularly.
Imagine waking up every day knowing that a stranger is lurking outside your home, leaving unsettling messages and trying to get close to you. That's the reality of most celebrities, and in this video, we will be showing some of them. Let's start with Taylor Swift, whose house has been broken into by multiple stalkers.
NYPD sources say Crow was spotted going through a dumpster outside Swift's townhouse just hours after he was given the restraining order and arraigned on other charges of stalking and harassing the pop star. Prosecutors say a security worker saw Crow near Swift's home about 30 times over the past couple months.
Between wealth, fame, and multiple Grammy Awards, Taylor Swift has also faced some of the most dangerous encounters with obsessive fans, some of whom remain at large.
The man has been arrested after breaking into her home for the second time in less than a year.
Yeah, this is really scary stuff, George. Roger Alvarado served time in jail for breaking into the singer's New York apartment just last April, but now he is back in a courtroom facing very similar charges.
It began in 2018 with Roger Alvarado, who broke into Swift's Tribeca apartment not once, but twice within a year. First in April 2018, then again in March 2019. Alvarado was sentenced to 6 months in jail for attempted burglary after the first break-in, during which he reportedly used Swift's shower and slept in her bed. After his release, he struck again, scaling the building with a ladder and smashing a glass door with a concrete block. Swift wasn't home at the time. The residence was unoccupied and under renovation.
Alvarado was arrested after breaking into the same apartment last April, taking a shower and napping in a bed. He was sentenced to 6 months in jail and ordered to complete a mental health program. 2 months earlier, he was arrested after busting the front door of the residence with a shovel.
He already had an order of protection against him from the previous break-in, which also required him to complete a mental health program. That sentence kept him behind bars for 9 months, but it wasn't enough to stop him.
Homestead man appearing in court on stalking and burglary charges, accused of breaking into Taylor Swift's townhome for a second time. Police say 23-year-old Roger Alvarado climbed a ladder and he broke a window to get into the singer's apartment. Just last year, he was arrested for breaking into her apartment, taking a shower, and then falling asleep in her bed.
Then came Michael Table, arrested in June 2023. He was charged with stalking, harassment, intimidation, and invasion of privacy after repeatedly attempting to contact Swift at her Nashville penthouse and through social media.
Madly, madly in love with you. Marry me. You are my soulmate. I'm the smartest man on the planet and therefore have the greatest appreciation for you.
Shocking charges tonight against a local man accused of threatening and stalking Taylor Swift.
Authorities swooped in and arrested him just hours before her first concert at Soldier Field.
Natalie Bumpke joins us now with what he is accused of doing. Natalie.
Dawn and Corey, those threatening messages included that he would happily wear a bomb if he couldn't be with his soulmate, Taylor Swift.
I wouldn't be surprised if, given the seriousness of the threats, that there's a separate prosecution in federal court at some point in the near future.
36-year-old Mitchell Table of Long Beach, Indiana, is in the LaPorte County Jail tonight. He pled guilty Tuesday to state felony charges of stalking and intimidation, invasion of privacy, harassment, and threatening sexual battery that could result in injury or death. The alleged victim, Taylor Swift.
On May 5th, security intercepted him inside her building after he slipped in through an unsecured door. Later that night, he showed up at Nissan Stadium, where Swift was performing, and was removed by security. In a voice memo sent via Instagram, Table allegedly told Swift he would happily wear a bomb if he couldn't be with his soulmate. He also sent threatening letters to her father and her backup dancers, warning them against any sexual performance of vigilante ST.
Table was accused of leaving a threatening message for Swift's father and gaining access to her luxury Nashville condo building ahead of attending her show.
And he was able to work his way through security, and he was found in a VIP section at the stadium in Nashville where she was performing, and was escorted out of the venue right before she took the stage.
Earlier this year, Table emailed Fox 32 Chicago with links to his website and social media pages where he expresses his obsession with Swift.
I proposed to Taylor Swift, everybody.
She's gonna say yes. I'm getting married. She's my soulmate.
Sweetheart, you're 33, and it's time for us to get married and have kids, sweetheart.
Swift's management team obtained a temporary restraining order, which Table is accused of violating by reaching out to the pop star on social media. Table is being held on a $15,000 cash bond. He was assigned a public defender in the case. His next court appearance is July 27th.
Although charges against Table were dismissed due to a lack of witnesses, the same couldn't be said for Eric Swarbrick. Eric Swarbrick was another obsessed stalker who, in 2018, drove 900 miles from Austin, Texas to Nashville, Tennessee on 3 separate occasions to personally deliver over 40 letters and death threats to Taylor Swift, her former label Big Machine Records, and its CEO, Scott Borchetta. "I will not hesitate to kill her, Scott," one letter read, "and there is nothing that you or your lawyers or the law can do about it." Swarbrick's obsession began at 22 and lasted 4 years. He believed Swift had reached out to him in over 100 dreams, which he meticulously documented, convinced he had waited long enough to claim her. At first, his letters were polite, even respectful. He sent emails to Big Machine, but when no one responded, his messages grew darker. Eventually, he wrote that he wanted to rape and kill Swift. Aware that her homes were heavily guarded, he chose to deliver his threats to Big Machine instead. He later pleaded guilty to stalking and was sentenced to 30 months in prison.
26-year-old Eric Swarbrick used to drive school buses for Eanes ISD. That is until the district learned he was facing stalking charges in Tennessee.
Our primary goal is the safety of kids, and this person did not seem to be the type of person we'd want driving our kids.
Swarbrick was employed by the district starting in 2012 after he passed fingerprint background checks through the Department of Public Safety. He stayed there about a year before leaving on his own terms. Then the district hired him back in May of this year. The district says he worked a little bit in the spring, trained through the summer, and drove buses for 3 days during the fall school semester.
Then we got this report, and as soon as we got the report through Travis County law enforcement, we terminated him.
The report claims Swarbrick sent dozens of letters to pop star Taylor Swift's record label. Some of the letters threatened to kill Taylor Swift or rape her. Police say those letters also include statements like this, quote, "If you oppose or undercut my soulmate, I will take you down. Maybe not the first time, or the second time, or the third or fourth or fifth. But I will, expletive, take you down, and it will be a TKO." And, quote, "Go ahead and call the police on me. Tell them I've contacted you again. I don't care. You can't stop me. I am the male Taylor Swift, and I don't care who you are." Swarbrick was previously charged with harassment in Nashville after he hand-delivered 3 of his letters to the company, driving all the way from Texas to do so. He was booked into jail in Nashville, but was released under a pretrial release program. After being released, police say Swarbrick wrote another dozen emails or letters to the record label and then missed his court date in Nashville. Eanes ISD Superintendent Dr. Tom Leonard says the district will offer counseling and other help to students who may have had contact with Swarbrick, but as of right now, there are no complaints.
We are unaware that he had any inappropriate contact with kids, did anything wrong with kids in our district. If they know of something, let us know.
Even in January 2024, the threats continued. An unidentified man was arrested for attempting to break into Swift's Tribeca apartment. NYPD officers responded to a call about a disorderly person at her Franklin Street residence and learned the suspect had been trying to open a building door. Further investigation revealed he had been lurking in the neighborhood for weeks. The danger has become so persistent that Swift's security team installed facial recognition software at her concerts to identify known stalkers among the crowd.
When Taylor Swift fans showed up at the Rose Bowl this past May for her concert, Rolling Stone reports they didn't know a facial recognition camera was set up in a kiosk inside the venue that was showing rehearsal clips, a kiosk that was a magnet for hardcore fans. The facial recognition camera's images, using technology similar to this, were being streamed to a command post in Nashville, where they were compared to a database of hundreds of Swift's known stalkers, a high-tech security measure set up to identify potential threats to the pop star. And while it may be an effective security protocol, is it legal?
I absolutely think it is.
Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson is an expert in privacy law.
We're talking about a private party. We're talking about people who know that they're going to a large outdoor concert. It's hard to say that they had any sort of reasonable expectation of privacy. But the question is, who owns these images? Where are they going to store them? And what are they going to use them for?
Professor Levinson says the law hasn't caught up with technology, and security applications are just the beginning.
People fear that we're going to know where people are, what they're buying, what they're doing, what they like, what they don't like, and privacy advocates have a very rational fear of where the end game is when it comes to these new technologies.
So the next time you walk through a turnstile at a concert, just realize you do not have any expectation of privacy, and all bets are off.
And she's not alone. Pop icon Ariana Grande faces the same terrifying reality. Just like Swift, Ariana suffered an excessive home break-in in the hand of a stalker. But to make it more scary, it's just one stalker named Aharon Zebulon Brown, who was very persistent. Ariana has been enduring this distressing situation since 2021. Brown broke into Grande's Hollywood residence 92 times in the period between February and September 2021.
A man who broke into pop star Ariana Grande's Montecito home and stalked her across 2 counties was sentenced to prison today. A judge sentenced 25-year-old Aaron Zebulon Israel Brown to 3 years and 8 months in prison, plus a 10-year restraining order. The Santa Barbara County DA's press release refers to his victim as Jane Doe, but multiple outlets have confirmed it to be Grande. In 2021, Brown broke into her Hollywood home 92 times and even threatened her security team with a knife at one point. The next year, Brown broke into Grande's Montecito home, cutting phone and alarm power lines and hiding inside. A canine found him in a crawl space. Brown pleaded guilty to stalking, burglary, and making criminal threats earlier this year.
He wielded a knife and threatened 2 members of Grande's security team, resulting in a 5-year restraining order, which Brown violated, and that's when the situation escalated. It happened in June 2022 when he forcefully broke into Grande's Montevideo home by tampering with the security systems with the help of a screwdriver and cutting wires connected to the alarm and telephone lines. Not only this, Zebulon got into a brawl with a 30-year-old pop star security personnel, threatening to kill them and the singer. Police officers responded swiftly, and a K-9 unit discovered Brown hiding in a crawl space.
Terrifying incident for Ariana Grande on her birthday, no less.
Which was last Sunday.
Yes, and on that day, a man who had come calling for her before, a stalker who showed up at her house with a knife, threatening to kill her, well, he came back, this time broke into her house in Montecito on her birthday, and I don't think that's a coincidence, but this time he was captured. Security saw him on cameras.
Well, because what happened was he broke in and it set the alarm off. She was not home. And it set the alarm off. The police responded. Apparently, the alarm company called the police. Police came out and they found this guy, and he is a menace.
So we told you about this guy because when the first incident happened, it was terrifying. With someone with I believe he had a hunting knife.
He had a hunting knife, and he threatened to kill both Ariana and her security. He was arrested. A restraining order was issued. He violated the restraining order. He was supposed to turn himself in. I think last Tuesday, or yesterday actually, and turned himself in because he violated the order. And instead of turning himself in, he broke into her house. So now the guy has been charged with burglary, cutting power lines, which is ominous, resisting arrest. He's in jail right now. He's pled not guilty. He's in jail without bail. But you gotta wonder, I mean, how scary is this for somebody like Ariana Grande?
Investigators also found that Brown had more than 2,000 images of Grande and had sent Instagram messages expressing his intent to hurt her. He was arrested and charged. Brown pleaded guilty on January 11th, 2024 to several charges including stalking Grande while she had an active restraining order, first-degree residential burglary at her Montecito home, and criminal threats against Grande and her security team.
And even before he showed up at the house on her birthday, he had violated the restraining order. So that was breaking into the house was a second violation. So
then the question is, how long does he go? You know, a couple of these charges, the burglary and I think at least one other, there are 4 charges, I believe, are felonies. So he could do prison time, but people get out. And when you're somebody like Ariana Grande, we've seen this with the Kardashians too, when you're somebody who is that high profile and somebody is just determined to get at you, How do you protect yourself? I mean, it is just a conundrum in Hollywood, and she is facing that right now.
And he is proving, you guys, that he is willing to go the distance to try to meet her or kill her or whatever he's trying to do. Because the first time that this happened, he was at her home in Los Angeles. And then the second time, the most recent one, he traveled to her house in Montecito. So he will go at great lengths to get to her. And one of the charges, Harvey, was that he had damaged some power lines. So I'm not really too sure if he was trying to cut any, phone cords off or if he was trying to disarm the security. But it's really, really serious, especially since the first time he had a knife on him. It's very scary, and you got to be wondering what Ariana is going to do next. I mean, what else can she do? She does already have that restraining order.
Yeah, no, she's got a restraining order that he's made clear he will violate, and not just violate, but then break into another house. And the power line really is ominous, because usually you do that to disable the person inside from contacting people on the outside. I mean, that's usually why you do it. And it could be that he thought it might disable the security system so nobody would know. Might have been a phone line that he worried about. But
The combination
that's a
of-
really ominous sign.
Yeah, that combined with the fact that he drove, and Montecito is not, a quick drive from LA, but make that effort and then do that when he gets to the house.
It's really frightening.
He was then sentenced to 3 years and 8 months in state prison. He is also subject to a 10-year restraining order, which bars him from contacting or being within 150 yards of Grande.
This right here is very serious and frightening, being the fact that he keep constantly finding out where she lives at. Number one thing, I want to know who keep breaking security, breach, and making sure that this guy find out where she is, because he keeps following her and everything. So I hope that the police doesn't fail us with Miss Grande and that she stays safe.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing.
And that's her fear. And look, it's not an easy solution because you're dealing with unstable people.
Although these two singers had a dangerous experience, can we still tag what happened to Kim Kardashian as a stalking incident? Kim Kardashian isn't a singer, but she's one of the most recognizable figures on the internet. Being a frequent visitor to Paris for fashion and business, it was during one of these trips that she faced the most terrifying ordeal of her life. On October 3rd, 2016, Kim, her sister Kourtney Kardashian, and stylist Simone Harouche returned to their hotel after a night out. While Kourtney and Kim's assistant, Stephanie Shepard, changed clothes to head back out, Kim stayed. One wore ski goggles and stayed with Kim, demanding her ring. She tried to stall, claiming she didn't know where it was, but when he pulled out a gun, she quickly handed it over.
In the dead of night in Paris 2016, 5 men armed with guns broke into Kim Kardashian's hotel room. They tied her up, gagged her, and held a gun to her head. Kim begged them to just take whatever they wanted, pleading for her life and thinking only of her babies back home. From the moment she landed in Paris for Fashion Week, Kim had been sharing everything on social media. Likely place for her to be. But little did she know that her constant updates with her location in the background made her an easy target for a criminal network that had been tracking her every move when they heard she was in town. The media coined them the grandpa robbers because even though they were all between the ages of 60 and 72, they were still strong, violent, and let's not forget, armed. The men still blame Kim herself for supposedly making herself a target for robbers, and social media was very quick to join in with the victim blaming, slut shaming, and everything in between.
Dragged her into the hallway and forced her back into the room, where they pushed her onto the bed. They tied her wrists with plastic cables, taped her hands, legs, and mouth, and left her helpless.
Breaking overnight, 2 men held up Kim Kardashian at gunpoint inside her Paris hotel room. A spokeswoman for Kardashian says both men were wearing masks and they were dressed as police officers during the incident Sunday night. Kardashian was badly shaken, but she was not physically hurt. She was in Paris for Fashion Week. Last night, her husband, Kanye West, was performing in New York. He abruptly ended his show at the Meadows Festival. He told fans he had to stop due to a family emergency.
Kim later detailed what had been stolen from her room: 2 diamond Cartier bracelets, a gold and diamond Jacob necklace, Lorraine Schwartz diamond earrings, a gold Rolex, and other valuables, totaling over $5 million. The robbers fled, leaving her bound. She managed to escape her restraints and call for help. In season 13 of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Kim publicly opened up about the ordeal, revealing that the intruders had demanded cash, which she didn't have. They then dragged her into the hallway and onto the stairs, where she saw the gun clearly. Duvier was widely blamed for the incident and later sued for $6.1 million by AIG, the insurer that covered the cost of the stolen jewelry. AIG alleged that Duvier and his company, Protect Security, had negligently secured Kim's apartment. But was Duvier really at fault? At the time of the robbery, he was accompanying Courtney and Kendall to a nightclub. Since he regularly provided security for the entire family, it wasn't unusual for him to be assigned to other members once Kim was thought to be safe in her residence.
Right now, Kim Kardashian West's bodyguard is facing a $6 million lawsuit. This is the bodyguard who reportedly left Kim just before she was robbed at gunpoint in Paris back in 2016. He's being sued for more than $6 million by the insurance company that paid Kim back for the jewelry that was stolen. The suit claims that he did not do enough to prevent this from happening. So should he be held liable here? I know that he ended up escorting her sisters to a club. So if he's being employed by the family, he's still doing his job. And I know others are critical, thinking that this is an inside job.
I love a good conspiracy theory.
Okay.
You know me. I think it's an inside job. If you ask me.
Okay.
That's just me. I think it's an inside job, but I don't think he should be liable for it, especially if he was doing another job, like taking the sisters to the club. He's responsible for them now, not what happened there. But I'm not saying he's squeaky clean in this. That's just me. That's just me.
Al.
Very convenient. Very convenient that he's not there and she's there by herself. I just think that there was anytime there's a lot of money by itself and it's being guarded by an A-list Instagram celebrity, I think that other people that are nefarious will be aware of that and they'll make sure that they get their hands on it, and they did.
Wow. All right.
Up next is another female singer who got repeated stalkers on her tail. Let's start from June 2014, when a homeless man named Che Thomas Cruz was arrested in March after jumping a fence onto Selena Gomez's property and breaking into her guest house multiple times. Authorities say Cruz went to the home of Gomez twice and was first arrested in March for breaking into her guest house. Cruz pleaded no contest in April to a misdemeanor trespassing charge and spent 2 days in jail. But hours after his release, he jumped a fence at Gomez's home and was rearrested. In the judgment passed regarding his misdeed, the stalker was ordered to undergo psychological treatment. He was also ordered to stay 200 yards away from Gomez and her home for 10 years. But this verdict didn't make the singer feel safe. Selena was so scared that she had to sell her house.
Now this guy is ballsy because he's been arrested twice in 1 week for trying to get to Selena. He was first arrested on a Wednesday trying to break into Selena Gomez's guest home, and he even acknowledged in court that he was trespassing on her property, so he knew what he was doing. Authorities ordered him to stay away from Selena and her home. He was put on probation and sent to jail for up to 45 days, but he was released 2 days later. And guess where he went? Just hours after he was released from jail, he was right back at Selena's home. So this man's name is Che Cruz, and I believe he was only 19 years old when he first started trespassing on Selena's property. And it's not clear why he's like obsessed with Selena. There's obviously something motivating him because he was caught jumping a fence at her home just after getting out of jail. It's reported that Selena was home the first time he broke into her home, but it's not clear if she was home the second time. Because this guy Che can't help himself, he was charged with felony stalking. He pled not guilty, but he had a bail of $160,000, which is a lot of money. He probably couldn't bail himself out, but I'm sure if he could, he would have gone right back to Selena's home. Though I do appreciate that the judge ordered this man to seek mental treatment. He was told to spend 6 months in a residential treatment facility, followed by a year of psychological treatment. He'll also have to stay 200 yards away from Selena and her home and keep away from her for 10 years.
Year and a half after purchasing her mansion in Calabasas for $3.7 million, Selena Gomez listed the 7,700 square foot property for a whopping $4.5 million. Owing to security reasons. Although Sel's home was in a gated community with several security cameras surrounding it, she feared for her safety because the man got arrested on accounts of burglary shortly after Gomez moved into the house.
Because of this mess, Selena Gomez decides to sell her mansion. It's really sad that she had to up and leave her home because she didn't feel safe, but she purchased it a year and a half ago, and at this point, she probably just didn't even want to be in that home with all of those horrible memories. Although her home is located in a gated community, she has several security cameras, and she's had to make several 911 calls because she feared for her safety. And while living in this home, she's had more than just these two men stalkers. She's had a bunch of different people.
Sadly, this wasn't the first house Selena Gomez owned that was targeted by a stalker. In 2011, a then 46-year-old Thomas Brodnicki was jailed several times after persistently pursuing the young songstress and making death threats.
Yeah, this is such a bizarre and scary story, George. It starts out as a story we've heard before with celebrities. Police say Selena Gomez's alleged stalker flew from Chicago to LA to find her, but his story has a twist. Gomez was having trouble getting a permanent restraining order against him, so he stepped in and is now trying to help her. But does the alleged stalker's act make things even more terrifying for the star?
The court documents also reveal Brodnicki made multiple trips to Gomez's studio, insisted that he would not leave Los Angeles until meeting her, and has a criminal history of stalking. Brodnicki denies hearing voices urging him to kill Gomez, but talks about what he believes could be their future together.
One of my favorite scenarios is she flies out here on March 23rd, 2016. We start seeing each other.
Stalking changes a victim's life. It makes them give up any feelings of security because the stalker can show up at any time.
Selena's next court date is January 6th. She's still seeking that permanent restraining order. In the meantime, the judge issued a temporary one. Now, last month, the criminal stalking charges were actually dropped against Thomas Brodnicki because the judge ruled prosecutors couldn't prove that he specifically was trying to scare her.
Billie Eilish also joined the league in early 2023 when a man named Christopher Anderson started stalking her and repeatedly showed up at her family's home in Los Angeles.
Well, Billie Eilish has been asking for a restraining order against a man who allegedly broke into her family's home in Highland Park.
Yeah, this is video from that scene as police investigated earlier this month. The singer's court filing says 39-year-old Christopher Anderson showed up unannounced and uninvited at her childhood home. It allegedly happened 5 times between late December and early January. Eilish wasn't home at the time of that last break-in on January 5th, but she says the suspect has caused her substantial anxiety, fear, and emotional distress.
Anderson, who was 39 years old at the time, didn't visit once. He kept coming back, making Billie and her family feel unsafe in their own home. His first visits started in late December 2022. At first, he rang the intercom and asked to use the restroom. Then, he left a cell phone under the gate. But it didn't stop there. He also delivered a white flower along with a handwritten letter where he expressed his love for Billie and made bizarre claims that she had been watching him and writing songs about him. His behavior became more alarming over time. Despite getting no response, Anderson kept coming back, each time acting as if he and Billie had some kind of personal connection. Then, on January 5th, 2023, he took things even further. He allegedly entered the home without permission. That was a terrifying moment for Billie and her family. The idea that a stranger who had already shown obsessive behavior could just walk into their house was beyond disturbing.
We have breaking news here at 11. The family home of Grammy Award-winning singer Billie Eilish is a crime scene right now. Police are swarming the house and the neighborhood, and officers made an arrest just moments ago. Chris Christie in Air 7 HD with the latest on the investigation. Chris.
That's right, Mark. It's now an active crime scene. You are looking live at the front porch of the home, the childhood home of pop star Billie Eilish. You can see LAPD detectives on the scene down there looking for evidence. Now, the call was placed from inside the home, the 911 call, at roughly around 9 o'clock. When police arrived, they did find an intruder on the property. He apparently jumped the fence. Unclear whether that suspect made it inside of the house, but he is now in custody. A major investigation now underway at the home, which is owned by Billie Eilish's parents. Reporting live from Air 7 HD, I'm Chris Christie, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Chris, we have no indication anybody was hurt there, correct?
That's right. No reports of any injuries.
All right, good to know. Thank you very much.
At this point, Billie knew she had to take action. She quickly filed for a restraining order against Anderson, detailing in court documents that his actions made her fear for her safety, as well as the safety of her family. The court granted the order, which legally prohibited Anderson from coming near Billie, her family, or their home.
Superstar singer Billie Eilish reportedly in fear for her safety as well as for her family's. A man allegedly broke into the family home of the Oscar winner in Highland Park and repeatedly showed up at the house in recent weeks. Now the 21-year-old has filed a restraining order against the man for, quote, apparently professing his love for me, unquote.
This wasn't the first time Billie had to deal with a stalker. Back in 2021, she had already been forced to obtain a 5-year restraining order against another man who had camped outside her home.
So recently, Billie Eilish had to seek a court-ordered restraining order against a guy named John Hurl, who apparently has been harassing and even threatening Billie from outside of her home in Los Angeles. Within the documents filed, Billie says that the man has been camped out at a school right across the street from her house since the start of the summer. Plus, he has been constantly flooding her mailbox with threatening and very disturbing letters. Those documents include 13 photos that show these wild notes left from this stalker. They're all crumpled up, and he refers to himself as Lucifer and Satan a couple times, and he also constantly threatens Billie directly, which is just absolutely terrifying. In one of the notes he says, "You can't get what you want unless what you want is to die for me. You will know that soon. The water will rise and you might very well die. You will die." Billie also goes on to claim that this man watches her enter and exit her home and will always either say something to her or at least make a gesture. One time even included a throat-slitting move, which is, again, very unsettling. Now, of course, this has to be making Billie extremely anxious every time that she arrives home, now having to worry about the safety of herself and her family. So law enforcement officials told TMZ that this case was going to be investigated by the LAPD, but an arrest has not been made. That being said, Billie was able to have a judge force Hurl to stay at least 200 yards away from her and her parents at all times. So the second that he comes within that range, he would be arrested immediately, but I suppose another investigation into getting him arrested for those very threatening letters is definitely needed. I mean, he did write his actual name on the sheets several times, but you never know if foul play could be at hand. It's stuff like this, though, that really makes celebrities want to leave California. There's just not as many crazy people like this in other states, you know? I mean, a stalker will follow people, but in Los Angeles, it's so much easier for a celebrity stalker to just post up in a wealthy neighborhood and then boom, they'll eventually run into a celebrity. Hopefully, though, this all gets sorted out and her family can finally find some peace.
In court documents obtained by E! News, Billie recently requested the court grant her a civil harassment restraining order against a 23-year-old man, John Matthew Hurl. According to the documents, Billie also requested additional protective orders for her parents Maggie Baird and Patrick O'Connell. TMZ reported that for the past 6 months, this man has, quote, harassed and threatened Billie while parked at a school across from her family's house. In the court documents, Billie alleges that he began leaving, quote, extremely disturbing and threatening letters on her family's property. TMZ obtained the alleged letters, and some of it reads, "You can't get what you want unless what you want is to die for me. You will know that soon. The water will rise and you might very well die. You will die." Whoa. For months, Billie says this man would sleep on the school's property most nights and would, quote, stare at me while I enter and exit our family's home. In the court documents, Billie wrote, quote, whenever Hurl sees me, he always says something to me or makes a sign or a gesture directed to me. For example, he recently made a throat-slitting gesture to me as I was backing my car into my driveway. I interpreted this as Hurl wanting to violently harm me in some way. Billie went on and said that his constant presence causes her, quote, substantial anxiety, fear, and emotional stress, even with her security team present. And so, in the restraining order, Billie requested for a judge to force John Matthews Hurl to stay at least 200 yards away from her and her parents at all times. By around 2 p.m. Thursday, law enforcement told TMZ they were investigating the situation, and by 5 p.m. TMZ reported that thankfully the restraining order was granted. Again, like we said before, this is an extremely upsetting and scary situation. We're just so glad Billie and her family are okay, and we're glad the restraining order was granted. But no one, famous or not, should ever have to deal with something like this. It's unbelievably scary, potentially dangerous, and just a major violation of privacy.
However, what made the Anderson case even more disturbing was that he was targeting her childhood home, the place where she grew up, where her parents still lived, and where she had always felt the safest. That sense of security was now shattered. Billie has spoken out about how scary it is that personal information like home addresses, can be so easily accessed. For stars like these people, simply existing in the public eye makes them vulnerable to people who become obsessed and feel entitled to a personal relationship with them. That's a wrap. If you found this video interesting, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you stay updated on all our latest videos. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.